Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on a video of mine. It means a lot that you guys keep clicking, and if you guys keep clicking, I'll keep making these videos and keep doing daily content. I'm happy to do it if you guys are happy to see it. Today, it's going to be a very interesting topic. So I've done the best player from every season, but I feel like the women need a bit more love. So we're going to do the best female player from every season. Get ready for some robbed goddesses. Is that what they call it on YouTube? Yeah, so we're going to go through 1 through 40. From Borneo to Winners at War, and we're going to look at the best female player from every season from my perspective. Now this is based off of game, not personality. For clarification, and that's it. 81% of you guys who are watching these videos aren't subscribed. Let's change that. It's free and it's easy. And let's get into the video. All right. First off, we have Sue. So when I ranked my best player for Borneo, I had said Rich was the best player, but I feel like Sue was Rich's only strategical threat in the game, and I think Rich was smart enough to align with Sue instead of taking Sue on. I feel like Sue had just as much aggressiveness or sorry, not necessarily aggressiveness, but just as much assertiveness in creating the alliance as Rich did. In fact, Sue was trying to talk about who they were voting for in the first tribal, while Rich just didn't talk to anyone about who he's voting for, and instead just threw his vote out there. Whereas in Sue kind of had a contingency of ladies that she was trying to work for or work with for a bit with Stacy and I believe Kelly. And so Sue was just as much in the alliance game as Rich was, and for that reason, in this season of Survivor, when just being in the alliance game already puts you in the top 4 or 5 people in the entire season, I think Sue is definitely the best female in this season. Season 2, we have Tina. I've talked about Tina's game now twice. I said Tina was the best player from this season, period, and she stays the best player from this season, female wise. As I said before, she plays the exact same game as Colby, except without the immunity challenge wins, and she actually beats Colby at the end. And for that reason, she's definitely the best player. But if we're just talking about females, I mean, the next best player that you can look at is maybe Jerry, but Jerry really doesn't have a shot to win if she gets to the end. Amber doesn't really have any game to her. Yeah, it's really just Tina from the season. She has complete control over the game, and she's really guaranteed to get to the end of the game after the Mitchell boot because she swaps over with Colby, Amber, and Jerry. And for that reason, I do feel like she just shows dominance throughout this entire game. I will say her game is flawed in the fact that if Scoopman does not get medevac, then Kucha takes the numbers and she gets pagonged. But again, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Season 3, I have T-Bird. T-Bird was able to get through the game. She was able to lie when she had to, like for an example, to Lex when he was trying to figure out who voted for him. She was able to fool Lex into not thinking it was her, because if Lex had found out it was her, then Lex would have voted her out. And she was able to get deep enough into the game. I can't give it to Kim because she won immunity challenges to get to the final 2. And really, the only other person that would even rival her would be Kelly Goldsmith. But Kelly Goldsmith has less of a game than T Bird, I feel like, in this season. Season 4, Kathy. I think it's a close call between Kathy and Vesepia. I just feel like Vesepia was on the bottom for more of the game than Kathy was. Although I will say Vesepia plays the game early. Kathy doesn't really play that hard until the merge, but I feel like Kathy has more control over the game past the merge after the flip on the row 2-4 than Vesepia does. I feel like if it's not for Vesepia winning the Final Four immunity challenge, she probably doesn't. She probably gets voted out. Whereas in Kathy would not have gotten voted out if she had not won the Final Four immunity challenge. And I feel like because Kathy was able to convince Vesepia to force rocks, that's also a step up on Vesepia. And really, the only reason that Kathy doesn't get to the end is because Vesepia breaks her deal with her, and Kathy beats Vesepia as well. So I feel like that has to put Kathy over Vesepia in my mind. But I feel like they're both good players, and it was definitely a close call. Season 5, I'm just going to go with Helen. There's really no competition. There's not much to talk about. It's really just Heidick, and everybody else is just kind of a pawn. Moving on, season 6, I have Dina. So I thought first about Heidi because I thought that out of Jen and Heidi, I feel like Heidi was the one that had more of a strategical sense. But as far as power in the game, the person who had the most power in the game was Rob, and the person who at one point had the second most power in the game was definitely Dina. And in fact, Dina had more power than Rob in you know heading up to her boot episode at the merge. Dina definitely had the most power, and Dina, I think, was playing very strategically. I think she really took advantage of her swap tribe and was able to not get voted out over Shauna. And I feel like overall, Dina had a really good strategical sense for what was going on, and for that reason, I do have to credit her a lot. Season 7, Sandra. There wasn't much to pick from here, so I had to go with Sandra. I'm not super ecstatic over Sandra's game, but I'm also not feeling terrible about her game. But really, her only competition is Lil, Dara, and Tawana, which I mean I'm not picking them over Sandra. Sandra plays a pretty decent game as far as taking the person to the end who she can beat. Because I don't know if she beats Fair Play. I don't know if she beats Dara, and I don't know if she beats Burton. But she took the one person to the end that she knew that she can beat in Lil. My issue is that she didn't really take Lil. Lil kind of took her almost, and I feel like Sandra didn't have much strategical control over the game. She was out of the loop on the Rupert blind side, and she was willing to go to the end with Rupert, who would have crushed her. And I feel like overall, Sandra's just not a player that had much strategical sense in the game. But I feel like things worked out for her, and she got pretty lucky. Season 8, Jenna. I mean, the only other person you could really put here is Amber, and I mean, the thing Amber did was align with Rob and sit there and not make a not poorly manage the jury, at least not as bad as Rob did. But I feel like I can't give the best female player, award of that season to Amber because she didn't really play that hard. I feel like I have to give it to Jenna. I mean, I really it's not so much that her game was super positive, but that there isn't much competition here except for Amber. I mean, she did get to the final four, coming off of that Saboga tribe, which was not at all a tribe that was in power. They ended up getting split up, and it was just her and Rupert, and they were able to align with Rob and Amber, which I feel like is a really good move for her. And if she forces a tie at Final Four between Rob and probably did Rob get immunity? Yeah, Rob probably got immunity at Final Four. So if that's the case, then it would be Rupert and Amber, and then if Rupert was able to win probably the fire making challenge that they would have done, then it would have been her, Rupert, and Amber, or sorry, her Rupert, and Boston Rob in the final three. And then if that's the case, I guess she's hoping that Rob wins and Rob takes her, and then she beats Rob. That's her chance. I still think Rob wins against her, and that's why I'm not very high on her game. But because there's no competition, it's really hard to come up with anybody else who can really rival her. Moving on, season 9, we have Amy. Amy is definitely one where it's I said she was the best player from her season for the other best player from every season video, and I'll stick by that when talking about the females. I feel like if Amy doesn't go after Eliza and instead goes after Chris or even Scout, I feel like Amy is in a really good spot. And she just makes a really big blunder, and I feel like she had a lot of control over the game, and that out of the final three of her, Julie, and Leanne, I feel like she wins that final three. And for that reason, I do think that I have to give it to Amy for the best female player on that season. I feel like it's really Eliza and Twyla that really rival her. Twyla was never going to win in the end, and Eliza was always on the bottom of her alliance. So I feel like either way, Eliza kind of cannot take it over Amy. Season 10 is another case of not much competition there. I mean, for me, it's Katie. That's my pick. Her only competition will be Stephanie, but Stephanie had no chance of getting to the end because her tribe got decimated in the pre-merge, and I feel like Kay is the only other choice. Katie was in the core 3 of her core 5 alliance, but I mean, she was never going to win. So it's really tough with that season. You could say Stephanie because she was going to win if she got to the end against anybody except maybe Tom. But she was never getting to the end. Or you could say Katie because she did have more power than any other female that season, and had more chance of getting to the end. But she never wins. And so it's tough. I would give it to Katie just because she at least gets to the end and during the game has more power than her. Season 11, I have Stephanie. I think Danny is a close second, but I feel like Danny didn't have nearly as much control over the game strategically as Stephanie had. I feel like Stephanie was able to control the game completely. I mean, alongside Wraith, but pretty much completely controlled the game. She was the one who put Jamie on the jury. She was the one who put um, Judd on the jury. She was the one who put Lydia on the jury, although that was a silly move of her. And really, that's her biggest flaw is that she put that is that she voted out Lydia over Danny at Final Four, because then Danny beats both her and Rafe in a Final Three, as far as final immunity goes. But it's tough, and I feel like overall she did have the most strategical dominance of that season, and therefore I have to give it to her overall. Season 12, Suri. This is easy. It's not even close. I mean, I guess Danielle would be the far second. But Suri, the only thing I can fault her for is not gaining control and making the relationships on her original tribe, because she was going to be the first boot, if Tina hadn't been Tina. Tina, if she hadn't meshed at the last second with Ruth Marie, I feel like uh, she probably is the first boot. So she was really in danger of being the first boot. But I feel like overall, as soon as she's able to get into the Kasaya 6, I feel like she's the best player in the Kasaya 6 besides ours. And for that reason, I do feel like she beats anyone in the post merge except for ours and maybe Terry. And for that reason, I do have to give her tons of credit. Season 13, I'm going to go with Candace. I mean, you could say Becky or Sandra, but they were never going to win against either Ozzy or Yule. And I feel like for that reason, it's really between Parvati or Candace. Because I will say, if we play out the scenario of Penner not flipping, once it gets down to 5, uh, Penner probably goes, and then Nate probably goes, leaving Adam, Candace, and Parvati, which I think Candace or Parvati wins. And for me, it was a toss up. But because, what's it called? Because I feel like in the end, because Parvati's going to be on this list later, I gave it to Candace. And also because I feel like Candace probably wins a jury vote. Um, so it's tough, it's close, but I'm gonna go with Candace, and I feel like they both equally kind of share the spot. But if I had to pick one, I would have to go with Candace for several different reasons. Season 14, I'm just gonna go with Stacy. I mean, again, there isn't much here to pick from, but Stacy did create the safe vote, which is a kind of cool touch on her game. And she did have a chance to get to the end. I don't know, how much she has a chance to win. I think she maybe beats Cassandra in Dreams. But everybody beats Cassandra in Dreams, so yeah, it's kind of tough with her. Season 15, we have Amanda. Amanda had ultra control over this game. She had the reins to blindside Todd, but she didn't, and I guess that's probably her flaw in the game. That, and then she has no final tribal game. But everything else is perfect. She had complete control over all of her tribes. She was able to hide behind Todd as a meat shield, and it almost worked because she was almost able to get Todd out, but before the final 3. But then it didn't work out, and then she had a bad final travel. Compared to Todd's amazing final travel, but she did have a ultra control over the game. I guess it's really her or Courtney here, and it's obviously her who had more control over the game. I did definitely think it was her and Todd making all of the decisions, and if we're doing only females, then it goes to her. Next up, we have Suri. Suri is, I mean, for me, it's either Parvati or Suri, and I think for me, because of the fact that Suri had no idea that it was going to be a final 3, and because of the fact that Suri wins a jury vote, probably 3 to 2 to 2. In the jury, that would because if it was a final 3, then it would have been a 7-person jury, and it would have been 3 to 2 to 2. If it was Suri, Amanda, and Parvati in the final 3 for a jury vote, and for that reason, I do have to give Suri the edge here. She made all the same moves as Parvati did, except I think she had more of a say in the Eric boot than Parvati did, and for that reason, I do have to give her the edge over Suri. But again, she plays basically the same game as Parvati, but with little extra things along the way. And I feel like for that reason, I have to give her the respect that the same respect that I gave her in season 12. I have set for 17. Again, this is like a really tough one. There isn't much to choose from here, so I'm just gonna go with Sugar. She had no chance of winning ever, but she did have control over basically the entire post merge. She flips back and forth and back and forth, and then all the way to the end, all the way to the final four where she flips on Maddie, and then gives Bob a chance in fire making. So I feel like with Sugar, it's there's not much there as far as social wise, and there's not much there as far as choices to pick from. But because she's kind of the only choice I maybe besides Susie, maybe Corinne. I mean, but Corinne, she wasn't. She was never going to win the game, and Susie was never going to win the game either. I don't care what Randy says about a cookie or whatever. And I feel like Sugar had more control of the game than did Susie, so I feel like it has to be Sugar. Same exact story with Tokachins, except the person who I choose is like an obvious choice, but the rest of them are pretty much no goes as far as like them having a shot at being like second place or something like that. Which is Tosh for season 18. I picked Tosh. She was in a great spot where. Yeah, in the scenario where they all get to the final three, if either her or Steven win, then they probably take each other to the end, and they probably win. And no, and she definitely wins against Fishbag. My issue with her game is that the most likely final two scenario that she has is only with JT. And in that case, I do not think she beats JT. And if you can't beat JT on token chains, then you kind of have no shot, which is kind of the entire story of the season, is that nobody can really beat JT socially or strategically or really physically, except for maybe Tyson physically, but that's aside the point. Season 19, again, just a case of like there's not much here. Shambo was never going to win, and she didn't really have much social control except for flipping, but that's not really social control. That's just flipping. Um, I mean, Monica, but Monica was always going to get the boot because she wasn't as socially ingrained in that Galoo tribe as Laura Moret was, and that's my pick for this season. I feel like Laura had that social bonds with Dave Ball and Eric and Kelly Sharbaugh and Monica. And I feel like if she was able to get those girls together and maybe get whatever Parvati's boyfriend's name is, get him to go over with her, I feel like she could have gotten to the end with her ladies. But I do feel like it's kind of a tough situation where even if Glue takes over, I do feel like the final three would probably be Dave Ball, Brett, and that's tough, but definitely the boys of that tribe are probably getting to the final three because they're more of the center of the tribe, and for that reason, I do feel like it's more of a male dominated Gulu tribe. And but definitely out of all the females, I do have to give her the most credit because she had the best chance of getting to the end. Season 20, as I said earlier, Parvati was coming up, and that's why I didn't put her as the best player in season 13, and I'm going to put her for best player in season 20. I mean, it's not really there's not really many choices. I mean, it's either Jerry or Sandra, which they basically played the same game. It's just that Sandra got to the end and Jerry didn't. Um, and they played the same game where they flipped a few times, but I think Jerry did it more. So, I mean, I'd probably give it to Jerry if Parvati wasn't here, but because Parvati's here, it's easy. Parvati had control over the game more than Russell. Russell was bending to her plans, whereas she was not bending to Russell's plans. My only issue with her game, I really her only mistake is letting Russell blindside Danielle, or at least like allowing it to happen. Whether it's directly or indirectly, because if Danielle doesn't get blindsided and Russell, Danielle, and Parvati get to the end, Parvati wins. But woulda, coulda, shoulda. Season 21, I got Holly. Holly's like she kind of goes all over the place. She kind of starts out like kind of like a motherly figure like all night, and then she kind of just turns like she has a pretty big heel turn where she turns into a strategic mastermind. I feel like by the end she had like a bunch of strategical moves like under her belt. But my issue with her is I do not think that she wins against Fabio or Chase, and for that reason I have to take some points away from her. Season 22. I mean, it's either Ashley or Andrea. I'm going to go with Andrea just because we've seen what she's done in these past seasons, but also because I think in that game, if she's able to win in a mini challenger two and get to the end against Rob, she probably has the best shot. Maybe Ashley, but I feel like we don't get much from Ashley except for like the finale when she finally realizes how culty they're being. Whereas Andrea realized that a bit earlier, and she was able to kind of try and go after Rob a bit earlier than Ashley was, and for that reason, I have to give her the credit that she deserves. For season 23, South Pacific, I have Sophie. I mean, she's the winner. Besides Coach, I think she has the most power in the game, and because this is a female list, she kind of takes it by de facto. I do think she was kind of banking on Coach having a bad final tribal, which I mean, I guess she did the correct thing, but by banking on it because it happened. But I also have to take her down a notch because when you're banking on somebody to blow final tribal, that's a really big kind of uncalculated risk that you're taking, and I feel like it could have really blown up in her face. But I mean, there's not much competition here. I mean, the only female I can even think of that were in this post merge were Whitney, Dawn, and Edna, and obviously none of them are going to come close to Sophie. So she kind of wins it by de facto, and also because she's the literal winner of the season. Season 24, it's easily going to go to what's her name, Alicia, definitely. No, I'm just joking. It's obviously going to Kim. I mean, Kim played the most dominant game we've ever seen. Everyone wanted to take her to the end, and she had all these different options, and she beat probably the best competition of the entire season in the final tribal. But she crushes Christina Alicia, but she also beats Chelsea and Sabrina, even though they're actually decent players. I guess the only knock that you could say is that her cast is weak, but Austin Rob's cast was even weaker, and he won. So I mean, are you not going to give him credit too? So I feel like she just dominates this season. It really isn't even close, and this is pretty obvious. It was a pretty. This is probably the easiest pick on my entire list, easily. 25, I have Lisa. It was between Lisa and Denise, and I feel like Lisa beats her number one ally in Scoopin in a final tribal, and for that reason, I really have to give her credit. But I do knock her game because she was willing to go to the end with both Denise and Malcolm, both of which beat her. But if she doesn't go to the end with them, and she goes to the end with maybe Scoopin and a Carter, she could win. And I feel like for that reason, I have to give her game props. She also flips on the Tan Dang tribe, which I feel like was a good move for her game. And she does it without completely tarnishing her jury record, like a cast did for an example. And I feel like overall she had those social bonds to get far in the game, and she did exactly that. I have Brenda for season 26. For me, it's between Brenda or Andrea, and one because I already picked Andrea, but two because Brenda gets Andrea before Andrea can get Brenda. So I feel like by de facto it has to be Brenda. Also because Brenda probably beats Andrea in a final tribal council. So for those two reasons, I feel like Brenda gets the edge on Andrea. Although they're both very strong players in this season, but I'm gonna give it to Brenda, and I feel like Brenda had just as much control over Andrea, but because Brenda both beats Andrea in a final tribal, and because Brenda gets Andrea first before Andrea can blindside Brenda, I feel like I have to give her props there. I have Sierra for 27. I feel like it's either Sierra or Monica. And because Monica never wins against Tyson, whereas in Sierra could have beaten Tyson, I feel like that gives Sierra the edge. There really isn't much to talk about here. She plays a really good game from the bottom, and I feel like if she goes to the end with anyone but Tyson, she crushes them. And even if she's up against Tyson, I feel like she has a real shot at beating him, or at least getting more votes than Monica did. And for that reason, I have to put her over Monica. Season 28, I got Trish. I mean, it's either Trish or Cass, and Cass had no chance of winning. It didn't matter how far she got. Although I will say, when Cass flipped, she did basically guarantee yourself final three, and it would have been final two if Wu did the right thing by taking the goat. Because God knows Tony would have taken Cass for sure. But I feel like overall, I think Trish is the best female because Cass was never going to win after that flip, and she obviously beats out like a Morgan and a Jeffra by aligning herself with Tony. And she was able to keep Tony as an ally even when Tony would betray her. She wouldn't freak out, and I think she's one kind of odd betrayal at Final Five away from possibly getting to the end with a Tony and having a chance because of the fact that the jury was very salty at Tony. Season 29, I have Natalie. This isn't even close. I mean, I guess the only other competition would be Jacqueline, maybe, but I mean, it's pretty obvious. Natalie beats Jacqueline. Natalie blindsides Jacqueline by taking out her boyfriend and John. I mean, it's pretty obvious here. I mean, the Baylor blindside, John blindside. Really, her only negatives are probably the Jeremy blindside. That's it. I think besides that, she's looking really good on her track record, especially in the post merge. Okay, I have Carolyn for season 30. I mean, the only real competition here is maybe Shireen and Haley and Sierra Non Thomas. Come on. So I feel like it kind of goes to Carolyn by de facto. She has that cool idol play at 6 or 7. And besides that, it's tough to really give much more credit to her. I don't think Carolyn had as much power as Rodney did. But I feel like there's just not much competition here for women on the season, and so I kind of have to give it to Carolyn. Season 31, I have Wentworth. Wentworth does something really cool with an idol, which she plays it. It's super epic, and she doesn't go home at the very next tribal. She's able to turn that idol play into 7 more rounds of life, which is super impressive, and it shows that she's not just a strategical player, but also a very savvy social player. And she's able to have some control. After that, she's not just she's not just on the bottom, the entire time. And for that reason, I do have to give her more credit than I would to players who play an idol. It's super epic, and then they go home in the next few episodes. 32. I mean, it's really between Aubrey and Michelle because Sydney had no chance of winning because of the Scott, Jason, and Julia contingency on the jury. So it's between Aubrey and Michelle. I mean, Michelle beats Aubrey, obviously, as we saw, but Aubrey has more control over the game. And I feel like the control over the game outweighs the beating because of how much control Aubrey really did have over that post merge, especially coming in with less numbers, whereas Michelle came in with more numbers and still lacked the ability to have control over the game. And so for that reason, I have to give it to Aubrey. Season 33, kind of a lack of people here. I mean, it's either Hannah, Sunday, definitely not. Jessica, definitely not. So yeah, it kind of goes to Hannah by de facto here. Season 34, I got Sarah, very, very dominant game socially, and was able to constantly flip while still keeping the jury's respect, and get the advantage the advantage from Sarah when she needed it. Several different big moves that she made that really helped her get to the spot in the game. Season 35, I got Chrissy. Chrissy's she plays a very dominant strategical game, and I think overall, if Chrissy gets to the end with Orion and any player except for Ben or Devin, I feel like she wins the game, and so I do have to give her credit there. I will say Lauren was probably was set up to do better, but Chrissy kind of outsmarted her, and I feel like because of that, I have to give it to Chrissy. 36. This is really tough. There's nobody. But I have to pick somebody, so I'm gonna go with Laurel. I think Laurel does what Jenna Lewis and Rupert did in All Stars. Laurel and Jonathan do that exact same thing by aligning with Wendell and Dom. But the problem is she doesn't beat Wendell or Dom ever. She also doesn't beat Jonathan either, which is even more sad. So I feel like all of her allies she can't beat. Like everybody in her alliance. Like not even like, okay, I'll take one person from my alliance and then take one, goat to the end. No. She would need two magical goats to go to the end, which is tough because she's already a goat herself. 37, I got Allison. I think Allison plays a game where if she can get to the end with Mike and Angelina, she probably wins. If she can get to the end with Angelina and Kiera, she wins. If she gets to the end with Kiera and Mike, she wins. So she has a lot of combinations that she can win with. She plays a game that's very strategically fluent and socially strong, and for that reason, I have to give her respect for her game. Season 38, I'm going to go with Victoria. She just kind of had control of the game. I mean, there really isn't much to talk about in her game. She was able to capitalize on opportunities that she was given in the game, and she was never stuck in one position. I feel like season 39, I have to give to Lauren because her and Tommy played the exact same game, but I do believe that Lauren beats Tommy at the end. So I really do think that she was a fire making challenge away from winning the entire game, and that's on her for not winning that. Season 40, I have the second two-time person on this list. The first was Sari, and the second is Sarah. I think Sarah plays a similar game to Tony. I'm giving like if we're talking about the best player in the season, I'm giving it to Tony over her because he was able to blindside her ally and Sophie. But I feel like overall she had the most control out of any female player after Sophie was gone, and because Sophie didn't have some crazy amount of power, before Sophie was gone, I feel like it's okay enough to give Sarah the female title in the season because of the fact that she did have say in just about every single pre-merge vote except for Sophie's vote, especially the Ben vote, Jeremy votes, Nick vote, and I feel like overall she managed Natalie coming back from the edge very well. That's it. This is all 40 seasons. What is the best female player from each season? How do you like hearing about your Rob goddesses? Do you want me to do best male player from every season? Do you want me to do a completely different idea? Tell me in the comments. Like the video so that other people can see these videos and love them just as much as you do. If you support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing, viewing, you're the best person ever. Literally, there's no one better. I can't think of anyone better. My mouth hurts from talking so much. This probably going to be a half an hour recording, maybe even more. We'll see. And if that's it, thanks for watching.